order paper and any other business scheduled by the Senate's Business Committee. The order paper for Wednesday, 15th March 2023, respectively. The Senate Business Committee will also schedule any other business as well as petitions and statements pursuant to standing orders. I thank you and hereby lay the statement on the table of the Senate.
Senator Murango.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the status of investigation into the death of Mr. Kennedy Joroge and Mr. Ndungu Joroge in Mwea Sub-County. In the statement, the committee should, one, inform the Senate and mourners who cut away caskets containing the bodies and dumped them in at the local police station in protest over the killings, and four, outlining measures if any the Minister of Interior National Administration has taken to address the rising tensions at the Embu Kirinyaga Mbunda where the deaths occurred. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sieng and Senator Manzo, I can see on the queue. Should I therefore assume you want to contribute to this? So then, can you please move from the queue? Thank you. Senator Hamida? Yes, proceed.
Request for statement on the prevalence of Hyperemeris gravidarum in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health on the prevalence of Hyperemeris gravidarum, a condition characterized by severe nausea, vomiting, weight loss, and electrolyte disturbance in pregnant women in Kenya. In the statement, the committee should appraise the Senate on the relatively high prevalence of Hyperemeris gravidarum in Kenya compared to other countries regionally and globally. Two, state measures, if any, being taken by the Ministry of Health to ensure that healthcare providers are efficient in diagnosing and treating Hyperemeris gravidarum in pregnant women. Three, outline specific programs or initiatives put in place by the Ministry of Health to address the needs of pregnant women suffering from HG, such as providing access to specialized care or financial support, counseling or mental health services to address the psychological toll of the condition. Four, outline the current standard of care of managing HG with any plans for revision in light of new research or treatment options, setting measures, if any, to collaborate with international organizations or researchers to advance the study on HG in the Kenyan context, or to learn from the experiences of other countries facing similar challenges. Five, outline efforts underway to raise awareness about HG among public, in encouraging pregnant women to seek medical help if they are experiencing symptoms that are common with the condition. And finally, outline plans, if any, to address the potential impact of HG on maternal and fetal health outcomes in Kenya, providing the data being collected to track these outcomes. She had two statements. The next statement is on reports of sexual abuse at James Finley Kenya Limited. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on reports of rampant sexual abuse in plantations owned by James Finley Kenya Limited in Kericho and Bomet counties. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state steps taken by the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection to address the issue of rampant sexual harassment and abuse of workers at plantations owned by James Finley Kenya Limited in Kericho and Bomet counties once and for all. Second, cause an investigation into the conduct of the management of the tea company in view of the reports outlining steps taken to punish the culprits and bring relief and compensation to the women affected. Thirdly, outline regulatory or legal measures that will be implemented to protect workers in Kenya's tea industry from sexual harassment and exploitation, as well as methods for enforcing these measures. 4, state any existing industry standards or codes of conduct that address the issue of sexual harassment in the Kenya tea industry and explain their effectiveness. And finally, outline any available support for survivors of sexual harassment and abuse and indicate the steps taken to raise awareness about its availability and accessibility to victims.
You have read both statements, Senator Esi. Thank you. Senator Lekin, I can see you on the queue. Do you want to contribute to? Then just move out of the queue. You are on my order paper, so move from the queue. Thank you. Senator Maruma. Senator Mundigi.
Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on the status of Older Persons Cash Transfer Program OPCT in Embu County. In the statement, the committee should 1. Provide the Senate with the current number of registered beneficiaries of the Older Persons Cash Transfer OPCT program in Embu County. 2. State measures that have been put in place by the government, if any, to ensure there is vetting of caregivers to minimize disputes currently being experienced. 3. Provide accurate data on the number of Jamii Mobilization Center in Embu County, outlining the step being taken to sensitize the public on the activities of the centers. 4. Table a report on the status of NHIF cover for the older person under Inua Jamii program in Embu County. And 5. Provide information on the status of compensation of the 16 victims that died in an accident along Gangara, Siakago Road on 16th November 2021, most of whom were elderly persons going to receive their OPCT funds. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to check a statement from the Standing Committee on Energy regarding national power outage that occurred on Saturday, 4th March 2023. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain reason for the long duration taken to restore power and outline measures put in place by the Kenya Power and Lighting Company, KPLC, if any, to mitigate system disturbance in future. 2, provide the measures put in place by the government to ensure protection of Kenyans from the security threat pursued by lengthy power outage. 3, outline plans by KPLC, if any, to compensate customers who may have suffered losses such as damage to domestic appliance and industrial hospital machines as a result of just outage. And 5, state whether the KPLC has any plans to provide incentive to the manufacturers and industries who are heavy power consumers. Senator Mundigi, Embu County.
Senator Chirange.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to support the second statement by Senator Ovembu on the Standing Committee on Energy regarding national power outage that occurred on Saturday, 4th March, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that it was very unfortunate. The last time there was national outage, we were told a monkey the step on one of the transformers in the country. Mr. Speaker, what I am appealing is that many, especially hospitals, were affected. Mr. Speaker, you were in chamber yesterday when we were discussing about Nairobi, Coast General. Ensure reliability of electricity. We don't want to be like South Africa, Mr. Speaker, where there is unreliability of electricity, or where you go to Nigeria, the only noise you hear in Nigeria, Mr. Speaker, is of generators, Mr. Speaker. All those challenges, we really want to be told what really happened. And I would have expected Kenya Power, Mr. Speaker, through the Ministry of Energy, to give us a comprehensive statement, Mr. Speaker, on really what happened, because many businesses were destroyed. A lot of lives might have been lost. I'm told in Machakos Hospital, and Senator Kavindu can verify this, a number of lives were lost. Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious issue, especially when you have small hospitals where they don't have standby generator, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, somebody must be sued be taken to court for criminal negligence because deaths occurred, Mr. Speaker. This was economic sabotage, Mr. Speaker. So unless Kenya Power and Lighting Company, Mr. Speaker, issued a comprehensive report and a mitigating reasoning as to why there was a national outage of power across the country, Mr. Speaker. So I want to thank Senator Mundiki, Mr. Speaker, for bringing this statement, and also support, Mr. Speaker, and hope the committee led by Senator Wamatinga of Nyeri will come up with serious way forward on the issue of this consistent, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, Kenya Power should try and improve. I don't know what they need to do, because the moment rains rain in this country, the Kenya Power just goes off, the power goes off. It is behaving as if when you want to take off your clothes from dry line. That is what we really need to be told, what is happening within Kenya Power. If they need more modern equipments to ensure that when it rains, they don't go off, then they should tell the country. And I think there is enough money to ensure they get modern equipment, Mr. Speaker. With those very remarks, to congratulate Mundiki and wish that this matter be resolved as soon as possible.
Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The issue of power outage, Mr. Speaker, has not been taken serious for a long time now by Kenya Power. The moment there is no notice there's no preparedness, and power goes out. You have babies in nurseries. A certain hospital may not have other backup systems, or those backup systems may fail. Not every Kenyan citizen can afford a backup system, so things in fridge are destroyed massively, and many Kenyans suffer a huge damage. And should even people consume food which had been stored and there is outage, and then that outage is not picked by an institution like ourselves or any other institution, then there's a likelihood of wastage. But Kenyans have not pursued Kenya Power. They have not sued them. They do the outage, yet they have increased the cost of electricity in the country and unexplained. I believe this is a matter which must be taken more seriously than ever before, and probably Kenyan community should become now litigants. If you lose your property during the outage, there should be a massive suit for all Kenyans who lost during that particular moment. And at times also when the power comes back, it comes back with such high voltage that it damages electronic equipment massively in many places. And yet, this is still not taken seriously. So, Kenyans should be treated to power supply which does not go off. It happens in other parts of the world. It can be done. What is happening with our engineers is criminal negligence. And I think the person bearing the biggest responsibility in this institution should be prosecuted either by the DPP or privately for such criminal negligence which amounts into loss of property and loss of lives, and especially loss of lives. I believe a good criminal case will lie, and the effect of that particular criminal case is that those particular officers who are responsible will have to step aside of their duties till the trial is over. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulate the Senator for Embu for such initiative. He is very familiar with matters Kenya Power, for he once generated power. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Olekina.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank you first. I rise to support the statement by the good Senator Alexander Munyi Mundigi from Embu County. Mr. Speaker, the issue of power outrage in this country is something that Kenyans ought to know that they have a right to sue Kenya Power for damages. The contribution which was being made by my good friend, Senator from Makueni, is something that happens to each one of us. It's only a few Kenyans who are in the know, who have sued Kenya Power, and they have been compensated for their electronics being damaged. I think when the Committee of Energy is going to be looking at this matter, I'd like the committee, which I'm a member of that committee, to carry out a survey of how many Kenyans have lost expensive electronic because of this issue of power outrage. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, I don't understand why we cannot allow mini-grids to exist in this country. It is not possible, Mr. Speaker, for one company which has got the monopoly to supply adequate power across the entire country. We'll continue experiencing outages. About 3 days ago, the entire country of Kenya, suffered a huge blackout. A lot of things were damaged. Food in the refrigerators went bad. And Mr. Speaker, one thing that Kenyans don't know, even all these problems we have in our stomachs, is because of the fluctuation of the temperatures in the refrigeration. When you preserve food in the fridge and you put off the electricity, or there is an electricity outage that lasts for like 6 or 7 hours, when the electricity comes, that food, the bacteria in that food will react differently now when you still have to come back and freeze that food. So, Mr. Speaker, there are serious consequences. There are some which are unintended. There are some which end up being intended, because how do you just put out electricity without even giving people adequate notice? So, Mr. Speaker, I support this statement, and I hope that this time around we can be serious and we pursue Kenya Power and Lighting to compensate Kenyans, and also to agree And maybe this is a policy issue that all of us have got to sit down and realign ourselves into this new thinking. Let's allow counties that can be able to generate their own power, distribute that power. Why is it that a county like, for instance, Narok, which has got a sugar mill that produces a lot of bagasse that can be used to produce electricity, why can it not be contracted? You know, this issue of feed-in, feed-out tariffs has got to be looked into in a more broader way so that we can encourage creativity and we can also encourage Kenyans to enjoy uninterrupted electricity supply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Senator Beth Siango.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika, Kiswahili twakienzi leo. Basi mimi nasimama kuunga mkono hoja iliyowasilishwa na seneta wa Embu Bwana Mundigi. Asante. Hakika wa Kenya tunaumia sana kwa ajili ya mambo ya stima, na kwa kweli wakati wananchi wanaolipia malipo ya kupata mwangaza manyumbani kwa matumizi yao, hata kwa viwanda, kwa kazi ya biashara zao, basi inapopotea ama kukatika, wananchi wanaumia sana. Na hakika niseme hata siku hizi kampuni ya Kenya Power and Lighting hawaeleweki kabisa, maana wanasababisha mateso kwa wananchi wa Kenya badala ya kuwa baraka kwao na kuwa msaada kwao. Kwa hivyo kamati ya energy inapofikishiwa hoja hii, waishughulikie kwa makini sana, kwa sababu itasaidia Embu County na pia kaunti zingine za nchi yetu ya Kenya. Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Nyutu.
Asante Bwana Spika, na mimi wacha nikitumia Kiswahili manake Seneta Wakoli amekitanguliza kama lugha ya kuendeleza majadiliano yetu hii leo. Bwana Spika, mimi pia na simama kuunga mkono hoja ya Seneta Mundigi kuhusu kampuni ya usambazaji wa stima Kenya Power, vile kwamba tukapata ukosefu wa umeme kwa muda mrefu. Bwana Spika, kwamba ni muhimu kamati inahusika itakapokuwa ikishughulikia hoja hii iwe kwamba iangalie kama inawezekana tupate kampuni pia zingine. Manake Bwana Spika, ikiwa ni kampuni moja tu itakayoendelea kutupatia nguvu za umeme, basi shida zetu huenda zikawa nasi kwa muda mrefu. Na kwa hivyo ikiwa itawezekana tuone kwamba sheria inayoipa hii kampuni haki ya kipekee ya kuuza stima iweze kufunguliwa kwa wengine pia. Bwana Spika, tukiangalia historia katika ufanyi biashara ni kwamba kunapokuwa na washindani kila yani huduma huwa bora zaidi. Na kwa hivyo ningetaka kupendekeza hilo kwamba pawe na wengine ambao watashindana na kampuni hii ya Kenya Power. Vile vile hata kama haihusu kule kukatika kwa nguvu za umeme siku hiyo Bwana Spika, lakini tumeona hii kampuni ni kwamba hata ukitaka kuwa mteja lazima kwamba uwabembeleze. Na nafikiria hiyo ni shida ambayo pia itatatuliwa ikiwa kampuni nyingine ama zingine zitapatiwa leseni ya kuwa zikitupatia nguvu za umeme Bwana Spika. Na kwa hiyo nasimama kuunga hoja hiyo, na niseme kwamba Seneta Mundigi, asante kwa kushughulikia na kufikiria wa Kenya. Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Kenyan.
Bwana Spika, nasimama kuunga mkono taarifa hii iliyoletwa na seneta wa kutoka Embu. Bwana Spika, shida kubwa iliyoko kulingana na vile nimesikia na ukweli usemwe, shida kubwa iliyoko ni kwa sababu ya ukiritiba. Bwana Spika, unapata ya kwamba shirika la nguvu za umeme hilo ndio tu, yani Kenya Power, wao ndio wenyewe wana ile jukumu ya mambo ya kusambaza nguvu za umeme katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Bwana Spika, kwa hivyo wanafanya mambo kiholela vile ambavyo wanapaswa kufanya bila ya kuwa na mtu mwingine wako katika hali ya mashindano. Bwana Spika, kwa hivyo vile ambavyo ningependa kuomba Bwana Spika ni kamati ambayo inaongozwa na Wamatinga, kamati ya Kawi, Bwana Spika, waweze kujizatiti na waweze kuuliza maswali magumu, na kampuni ambazo zingeweza kuchukua ile fursa na kuanza kutengeneza nguvu za umeme Bwana Spika, na waweze kusambaza. Ni kuwe na hali ya ushindani na hawa ndugu zetu wa Kenya Power Bwana Spika, kwa sababu ni wao peke yao kunakuwa na sasa hiyo shida ya ukiritiba Bwana Spika, na unapata wanaweza kuangamiza wa Kenya kama vile viongozi wengine walivyoongea kusema ya kwamba Bwana Spika, vitu vinaharibika wakati vimewekwa. Unapata watu wanapata shida wakiwa katika hospitali Bwana Spika, na hakuna fidia yoyote hili shirika la nguvu za umeme linawapatia Wakenya Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo ningeomba mwenyekiti, kwa sababu yuko hapa na namjua yeye ni mchapakazi, sina shaka pangu rohoni atalishughulikia jambo hilo kwa hali ya dharura Bwana Spika, na atatupatia majibu na atatupatia jawabu la kudumu Bwana Spika, badala ya sisi kila wakati huwa tunaongea haya mambo ya hawa ndugu zetu wa Kenya Power, na inaonekana ni kana kwamba wamekuwa ni kama sikio la kufa Bwana Spika, halisikii dawa wala mteka maji msikitini Bwana Spika. Asante Bwana Spika.
Naona Kiswahili leo kimetanda kila sehemu. Senator Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the statement by the Senator Embu. And Mr. Speaker, this issue of Kenya Power, and where we have blackouts in this country, Mr. Speaker, has continued to be a big challenge to our investors, even to our homes. Mr. Speaker, Kenyans pay a lot of money in terms of bills for electricity. And Mr. Speaker, what surprises me is the fact that as much as we pay substantially for the bills for electricity, they're still not able, Mr. Speaker, to put in place measures to ensure that this situation which arose on Saturday should not happen again, Mr. Speaker, in this country. Mr. Speaker, in Baringo, there are specific days, Mr. Speaker, that we experience blackouts. And it is because, Mr. Speaker, they claim that there is a certain line which gets a lot of disruption all the time. Mr. Speaker, it is important that the committee handling this matter, Mr. Speaker, actually invites the Kenya Power Management, KPLC, to be able, Mr. Speaker, to appear before the committee and be able to explain why this situation keeps on arising in our country. Mr. Speaker, we are talking about a country that we want to do serious investments, and we cannot do so, Mr. Speaker, when we have this kind of situations. Industries, Mr. Speaker, continue to suffer, and we continue to be assessed as a country, Mr. Speaker, as a country that does not have the potential to have power supplied in our industries and in our homes. So, Mr. Speaker, it is very embarrassing that a country like ours can have this kind of a situation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we look at the supply of power in our country, I think the alternative, sources of power like the solar and so on, Mr. Speaker, should be encouraged in our country so that we minimize these situations in future. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support this, and I say it's not just a problem in Embu, but I think a problem in the entire country, and KPLC. And Mr. Speaker, we have the CS in charge of this ministry. Very, very responsible minister, he understands this, and I believe, Mr. Speaker, as we budget and put more money in this department, we should be able to have this situation coming to an end so that we don't have a challenge again in future. So I support, Mr. Speaker, and thank my colleague for this statement.
Senator Onyonka Richard.
My sound is, I hope I can be heard now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this discussion. I think I've listened to my colleagues discuss this matter. And, Mr. Speaker, I was fortunate enough to have shared the National Assembly with you. And that was 15 years ago. You remember, we discussed the same thing. We discussed how Kenya Power is basically a monopoly, how Kenya Power has got cartels that have been controlling how it is managed, how you have transformers that are supplied either from China or India, depending on who. Tenderpreneur is the one who won the tender. You have the transformers coming, Mr. Speaker, and normally they are defective. Mr. Speaker, at that time we were discussing why Kenya as a country cannot set up even an industrial complex which manufactures transformers for the supply of electricity in our country, leave alone the wiring. Mr. Speaker, year after year after year, Kenya Power has had managing directors who have served. Some of them have pilfered money from the fund, from Kenya Power. No prosecutions take place, and on and on and on. Mr. Speaker, the other issue I would like to maybe inform my colleagues is that actually the reason why, and at one time I was with the Committee on Legislation. My chair is here. And you remember we were discussing the issue of how did we as a country allow private individuals to become independent power producers who are using diesel, which then they take this power and sell to the national grid. The same people who are the ones who have been selling electricity expensively to the national grid are the ones who control Kenyan. They are the ones who don't want to have us in this house come up with legislation that is going to make it easy for us to take solar energy, which is cheaper, so that we can then sell that power to the national grid and make sure that Kenyans have cheap electricity. Mr. Speaker, I hope the Energy Committee in this house, and especially because I believe the people who stand and sit in this house are more intelligent, they are more determined, they are more engaged in trying to solve the problems of this country. I really hope, Mr. Speaker, that when the time comes for us to discuss how to solve the issues with Kenya Power and the supply of power generally, leave alone electricity, power generally in our country, I hope that we'll be able to sort out that issue. We'll be able to rationalize the arguments about why our power is most expensive in the East and Central Africa region. And that is why, like I've heard one of my senior members here, Honorable Kalwale, say, we cannot have companies who want to invest in Kenya because our power is twice what it is in Ethiopia, what it is in Uganda, and what it is in Tanzania. Mr. Speaker, I hope when the time comes in this House, we will be more engaged and be more committed to permanently and for the first time and lastly be able to solve the problem of expensive power supply in our beautiful country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Alan Chesang.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to make my contribution. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this statement and also support what my colleague has said, that we need to change from our old school generators to new technologies such as solar and green energy, so that we can lower the cost of electricity in this country. Again, Mr. Speaker, I also want to comment, apart from the high cost of electricity that we face in Kenya, I know many Kenyans suffer with a challenge that when they are moving from house to house, they cannot move with their tokens. So as the ICT chairperson of the Senate committee, I'd also like the government to invite new technologies, such as the meters that the new meters that they will procure should be able to move. Kenyans should be able to move with their tokens from one house to the others, because I know many youths sometimes they give notice to move houses, and when the time comes, Mr. Speaker, they feel very painful leaving their tokens from one house to the other. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I thank Honorable Mundingi for coming with this statement. Honorable Speaker, I'm the Vice Chair, I don't know where my chair is, I'm the Vice Chair of Energy Committee in this House. And as a committee, we have raised these issues, and tomorrow, I want to report to the House that tomorrow we are meeting Kenya Power to give us reasons why power has been, we've been having challenges of having blackouts regularly, because I know we have used a lot of resources to generate both, especially renewable energy, solar, we've done the hydros and even wind power, Honorable Speaker. So I want to promise that we will get the proper reasons why these issues arose, and then also, Honorable Speaker, to discuss with the government, because I believe they need to invest more in the lines, because I believe they have an issue. When I was in National Assembly, Honorable Speaker, in the last Parliament, we used to have the resources to connect power from Tarkwel towards Kitale. There was one from Narok towards Kisii, but every time the budget used to be removed by Treasury. So I believe this could be one of the reasons why we are having a recurrent blackout in the country. In fact, it was unfortunate that last Saturday we didn't have power close to almost 24 hours, and some people could have lost lives. As our colleagues have said, there were issues in Mombasa General Hospital, there were issues in Machakos, and many others that have not been reported. So as soon as the statements comes to our committee, my chair has come back, so I hope you'll give him an opportunity so that, because I've said tomorrow we are going to meet with the energy sector to give us reasons why we are having these recurrent issues.
Senator Karungo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to add weight and, of course, support my good friend, Honorable Mundigi, when it comes to the statement. Mr. Speaker, as I look at my phone here, I want to bring to the attention of this House that the issue of electricity has become an issue that is being debated here not once.
Majority Leader. The Majority Leader.
Majority Leader.
I'm addressing myself to you, Majority Leader. Read Standing Order 1172, which states that you cannot come in between or walk in between the Speaker speaking, the Senator speaking, and the Chair. So if you have to move on the other side, you may have to use the longer route to get to Senator Boni Kalole. Proceed, Senator Karunga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The issue of Kenya Power and the issue of electricity has been discussed here not once, not twice, not thrice, Mr. Speaker. That's why I want to bring to the attention to the Committee of Energy that is led by Senator Wamatinga of Nyeri, that as they scrutinize or they look into the issues of electricity, as they investigate, kindly have with you the President's address to the joint parliament sitting that happened sometime in September of last year. And I want to quote what he said about electricity. Concerning electricity, we shall facilitate the development of innovative and effective modalities to provide better off grid systems, including enabling consumers to form small cooperatives for that purpose. Mr. Speaker, the answer is here. The way to beat KPLC, the way to get away from the problems that KPLC has brought to us, is to enable consumers to form small cooperatives so that they can generate their own power through maybe streams or rivers around them, other innovative ways. And I believe the young people of this nation, this Senate is calling upon you to come up with ideas and innovative ideas on how to generate power, because the President himself said that they are working on a framework or a policy to make sure that you
Senator
are able
Kenywa.
to generate power.
Senator Karungo, just give me a minute. I think members, we need to acquaint ourselves with Standing Order 1172, where you cannot come in between or walk in between the senator speaking and the chair. Likewise, on the same standing order, because I've seen it here, you cannot come between the chair and the table, like Senator Ledama and Senator Chirange did a while ago. Kindly, for the orderly transaction of business, let us stick to our standing orders. Proceed, Senator Karungo.
I think, Mr. Speaker, even Kenya Power, they have the same problems. But to cure all that, I suggest the chairman of Energy to look into that specific clause from the speech of the President himself, because the cure is here. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wamatinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. In this session and in this statement, my name has been mentioned quite a number of times. I do want to acknowledge the Standing Committee on Energy, which I share, has the full mandate, capacity, and the willpower to come to look at this issue of high electricity bills and power outages. We have. And I would say that confidently because Senator Ledama sits in that committee with me. He was there previously. He has the experience. He knows what they omitted to do last time. He knows that they were taken hostage by the former regime. And now that we have the political goodwill, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would want to assure you that we will get to the bottom of this. Senator Karungo Dhangwa has referred to the speech by the President, which he addressed the joint houses. And I would want to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, this committee is conversant with the speech of the President, with the willpower that is bringing on the table. We know the problems that have faced the power suppliers in this country, and we are prepared to address them, and we are prepared to take them head on so that we can get a long-lasting solution. However, Mr. Speaker, sir, I must also say, as we've discussed previously in the statement on the resettlement of people whose land were taken, it is indeed unfortunate that this country has been taken hostage by a few individuals who continue to oppress Kenyans, and it is the high time we freed the Kenya from the shackles of these oppressors. We have barely 9 persons in this country who have taken everything from the banks to insurance companies to power control to coffee control, milk control, tea control. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to promise this House that Wamatinga, the share of energy, will take them head on. And I know with the support of Senator Redama, who is also as fearless as I am, we will dismantle these cartels and ensure that the cost of power gets where it's supposed to be, affordable. We are also aware, Mr. Speaker, sir, without lowering the cost of power, we will never industrialize this country. And that is why I want to say to this House, we must do what it takes to ensure that the cost of power is not only affordable, but reliable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Kamau.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia hii fursa niweze pia kuchangia katika mjadala huu ambao umeletwa na Senator wa Embu, Senator Mundigi, kuhusiana mambo ya umeme. Mheshimiwa Spika, yangu ningependa kusema kwamba nataka kusupport maneno ambayo amesema ya kwamba ni muhimu sana KPLC waweze kujukumika katika mambo ya kusupply umeme katika jamhuri yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, umeme ni jambo ambalo ni muhimu sana katika ukuzi wa uchumi wa jamhuri ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, tunapoendelea kupatwa na majanga ya ukosefu wa umeme katika sehemu mbalimbali za jamhuri ya Kenya, unaona kwamba kuna zoroteka zaidi katika upande wa maendeleo. Mheshimiwa Spika, ikizingatiwa pia mahospitali yetu ni mambo ambayo pia inahitaji umeme katika siku baada ya nyingine. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nikiongelea kuhusu kaunti yangu ya Lamu, niko na kisiwa ambacho kinaitwa Faza. Mheshimiwa Spika, Faza ni kisiwa ambacho sana sana wakazi wa pale wanategemea sana sana uvuvi. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati ambapo stima inakosekana kama vile sasa muda wa mwezi mmoja, Faza imekosa stima. Na wale wavuvi ambao wanategemea kitega uchumi chao ni kuvua, lazima waweze kuwa na barafu ambayo inawasaidia katika kuhifadhi zile samaki zao. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati ambapo umeme unakosekana katika ile sehemu ya Lamu ama kisiwa cha Lamu, Mheshimiwa Spika, inakuwa ni shida kubwa sana. Tumekuwa na janga hilo katika muda wa mwezi mmoja. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka nichukue head on kama vile Senator wa Matangi ameweza kusema kwamba hili shirika la Kenya Power linafaa lichukuliwe head on, kuona kwamba wakati wowote limeweza kujukumika katika mambo ya kulipia watu fidia wakati ambapo wanasababisha hasara kubwa katika uchumi ama kwenye uchumi wa watu wetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi ningependa kusema kwamba kisiwa cha Lamu ama Faza ni sehemu ambayo mpaka sasa, Mheshimiwa Spika, haijakuwa connected na national grid. Wanatumia umeme ama generator kuweza kusupply stima katika ile sehemu. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo hilo ni jambo la kusikitika, kuweza kutamausha sana na kuweza kuona kwamba watu wangu wa Lamu waweza kubaki nyuma kwa muda mrefu. Na niposa saa hii ninataka niseme kwamba serikali inafaa ijukumike zaidi, ione pia kwamba imeweza kuconnect Lamu na national grid ili wakati wowote stima iwe kipatikana mahali pale, kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, wanapotumia generator inakuwa pia ni shida kuvukisha ile mafuta ama dizeli ambayo inatumika katika kurun ile generator katika ile sehemu. Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono.
Senator Chirange, proceed with your statement.
Mr. Speaker, I had two statements, understanding order 52.1 and also understanding order 53. Maybe I need your guidance.
With no contribution.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir.
What is your
Speaker,
point of
sir.
order, Senator Kenyan?
Mr. Speaker, I'm standing on the number 1, which, Mr. Speaker, you have power to rearrange the orders in our standing orders, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kenywa, I'll get there. Let's just finish up with this order.
Okay.
So that we don't have to come back to it. So
Okay.
we'll rearrange the order paper after this order.
Okay.
It's neater that way. Proceed, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, I needed your guidance since I have a statement on Standing Order 52.1 and Standing Order 53.1. Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start with the request for statement on remuneration of village elders or Nyumba Kumi officials. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations on the issue of remuneration of village elders / Nyumba Kumi officials. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state a total number of village elders / Nyumba Kumi officials currently being engaged by the government and explain the terms of service of the said official. Mr. Speaker, sir, number 2, state the amount set aside in the national budgetary allocation for remuneration of village elders, Nyumba Kumi officials to be provided to the House, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, state the mode of payment or payments considered by the national government to be the best for disbursement of remuneration to these officials, Mr. Speaker, sir, of Nyumba Kumi and village elders officials, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on to the second statement. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 52.1 to make a statement on the Parliamentary Caucus on Open Government Partnership or OGP. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Open Government Partnership OGP is a global multilateral initiative that brings together 78 member countries and 78 local governments to promote transparency, participatory, inclusive, and accountable governance. Member states participate in the partnership by way of submitting 2-year action plans with county commitments or country commitments to achieve within the period of action plan. Mr. Speaker, Kenya became a member of OGP in 2011 and has so far implemented 3 national action plans and is currently implementing its 4th national action plan for the period of 2020-2022, which is terminating at the end of this year, 2023. Owing to the elections and transition in government in Kenya, was granted a year extension to conclude the implementation of the NAP, as some of the activities are pegged to legislation action by Parliament and approval by certain policies by Cabinet of the Republic of Kenya. Kenya is also a member of the Global Steering Committee for the period 2020 to 2023, which were chaired by then the Deputy President and the current President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a member of the Partnership and Global Steering Committee, Kenya is contributing to the partnership collective effort to tackle global issues related to inclusive recovery from the pandemic, strengthening the critical strain healthcare systems, address the global economic recession and social inequalities to save lives and livelihoods, and to protect democratic institutions. Mr. Speaker, sir, Kenya National Action Plan activities are designed to institutionalize open government and build greater resilience of OGP to withstand future political transitions, economic shocks, among other instabilities in the region and in the world, therefore ensuring the sustainability of the open governance discourse. Commitments in the action plan to include 1, beneficial ownership transparency, 2, open contracting, 3, open data for development, 4, public participation and legislative openness, 5th, improving public service delivery performance, 6th, access to information, 7, access to justice, and finally, Mr. Speaker, building open government resilience. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a Senate, we are a strategic partner in the open government discourse. Senate is the lead institution for Parliament of Kenya in the implementation of commitment number 4 on public participation and legislative openness. One of the key milestones under the commitment in the enactment of legal framework on public participation, and the public participation bill is ongoing. This is an issue that is long overdue, and I urge the sponsor of this bill to expedite drafting of the bill, and once the bill is before the Senate, that is being prioritized. Further, I urge the co-sponsorship framework envisioned in our standing orders be applied in this case of public participation bill. Mr. Speaker, this notwithstanding, it's worth noting that Parliament, in its power to legislate and allocate resources, plays a key role in supporting open governance reforms. Legislation and budgetary resources help ensure that the executive branch of OGP commitments are sustainable and effective if implemented. A proactive stance by Parliament in this case will ensure the institutionalization and effective implementation of open government commitments. Finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, as the ambassador for OGP in the Senate, I take this opportunity to inform honorable senators that with the right honorable Speaker's blessings, yourself, Speaker Amason Cheva Kingi, and Speaker Moses Masika Wetangula, we will be launching the Parliamentary Caucus on Open Government Partnership on Thursday, 16 March 2023 from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the main Parliament buildings. I therefore take this opportunity to invite all of you to attend that launch. Any honorable senators who are interested in joining the caucus, I invite you to join us that day, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you for this indulgence. Thank you very much.
Senator Mwaruma. Senator Ledama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement from the County Public Accounts Committee concerning the two tenders for the Narok County Government for the supply and delivery of earth-moving equipment, tender number NCG 0T04 2022-2023, and tender number NCG Machine Repair 01/2022-2023. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should address the following. Number one, the procurement process which the county government of Narok took in awarding the two tenders amounting to 1.6 billion to two companies. Number two, the committee should address the extent in which the county government complied with the requirements set out by the Public Procurement and Asset Disposable Act in the two tenders. And number three, provide information, if any, of complaints made by a number of bidders in relation to the tender or tenders to Public Procurement Regulatory Authority and action taken thereon. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kenywa.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 52-1 to make a statement on an issue of county-wide concern regarding an appeal by the Laikipia County Assembly for adjustment of proposed recurrent ceiling. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am in receipt of a request by the County Assembly of Laikipia that the Senate considers adjusting the recurrent ceiling as proposed by the Commission on Revenue Allocation from Kenya shillings 507,677,108 to 541,606,185. Mr. Speaker, sir, this request has been necessitated by the fact that the County Assembly has constructed a total of 15 wards offices for elected members of County Assembly. The Clerk of the County Assembly has even provided a detailed report that explains the nature of expenses necessary for proper running of the affairs of the county. Mr. Speaker, sir, these offices, which are now assets, property of the County Assembly of Laikipia, will enable the MCAs to discharge their constitutional mandate with ease and decency. Further, it means that there will be no cost associated with renting or leasing of offices. Thus, the MCAs will serve in comfort and at no extra cost to the county. I am also happy to note that the residents of Laikipia will now know exactly where to find their area MCAs, since the offices are permanent structures. Mr. Speaker, allow me to inform the Senate that I fully support the County Assembly request since I know that these adjustments will enable the County Assembly to run more smoothly, effectively, and efficiently. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me conclude by reiterating that the Clerk of the County Assembly of Laikipia is not asking for additional budget funding. Rather, he is requesting for an adjustment for the recurrent ceiling expenditure based on the budget allocated to the County Assembly as recommended by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. CRA revised its recommendation on the county government recurrent expenditure budget ceiling for county assemblies and county executive for financial year 2023-2024 that were tabled before the Senate on 15th February 2023. Approval of the same is within the purview of the mandate of this House, and I urge the colleagues in the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget through the chairperson to give due attention to this request when they will be considered in the County Allocation of Revenue Bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter.
Thank you, Honorable Senators. Pursuant to Order 45, Standing Order 45-2, I do reorganize the order paper, today's order paper. We shall move to prosecute Order number 9, number 10, and number 11, and thereafter resume the order as listed in today's order paper. Clerk, kindly call the order.
Order number 9, motion, adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the 2023 Budget Policy Statement, Division. Order number 10, motion, adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Finance on the 2023 Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy, Division. And order number 11, the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2022, second reading, Division.
Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 84-2, I do hereby make a determination that the matter indeed affects counties and the voting shall be by delegation. Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the division bell for 5 minutes. Sergeant at Arms, kindly proceed to close the doors and draw the bar. Honorable Senators, I now put the question that the Senate adopt the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the 2023 Budget Policy Statement laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 28 February 2023, and pursuant to Section 25(7) of the Public Finance Management Act and Standing Order 186(7) of the Senate, approve the 2023 Budget Policy Statement. Now, Honorable Senators, we are going to vote electronically. So you're going to press either yes or no or abstain. Unless the other explanation, clerk, kindly proceed to press the buttons. Senators, for those who have issues with the system, you'll be taken care of. Don't worry about that. Can we have a seat, honorable senators? We'll proceed to order number 9 to put the question, and then thereafter order number 10, and then we'll announce the results together. Honorable senators, under order 9, I do make a determination that indeed this matter affects counties, and therefore voting shall be by delegation. Voting, let me put the question, that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the 2023 medium-term date management strategy laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 28 February 2023. Now, voting will be done electronically, so you either press yes, no, or you abstain. Kindly proceed to vote. Senator Tabitha, kindly have your seat. Honorable Senators, we now move to order 11. And pursuant, Senator Boni, why are you crawling? Pursuant to Standing Order 84-2, I hereby make a determination that this matter indeed affect counties, and therefore voting shall be by delegation. I proceed to put the question that the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2022, be now read a second time. Honorable Senators, voting shall be done electronically, and you shall vote by pressing yes, no, or abstain. Kindly proceed to vote. Honorable Senators, here are the results of the vote. On order number 9, the vote is as follows. Yes, 25, nays, 0. So the ayes have it. On order number 10, these are the results. Yes, 25, nays, 0, abstentions, 0. So the ayes have it. On order 11 of the day, the results are as follows. Ayes 25, nays 0, abstentions 0. So the ayes have it. And therefore, on order number 11, the bill, we shall proceed to read the bill second time. Proceed.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act to provide a structured mechanism through which Parliament is able to receive reports from public officers on the resolutions passed by Parliament and for connected purposes.
Sergeant at Arms, kindly proceed to open the doors. Yes. Next order, clerk.
Order number 8, motion, approval of sittings of the Senate outside Nairobi.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, aware that the Senate of Kenya is established under Article 93 of the Constitution, and its main role as set out at Article 96 is to represent, serve, and protect the interests of counties and their governments. Further aware of the critical role that the Senate plays in the interlinkage between the national and county levels of government, cognizant of the need to enhance interaction between the Senate and the county governments as a means of bringing the Senate closer to the counties and the general public, acknowledging the success made during the sittings of the Senate held in Nairobi, outside Nairobi, held in Uasin Gishu and Kitui counties in 2018 and 2019 respectively, appreciating the recommendation of the Senate Business Committee that a sitting of the Senate be held away from the traditional premises in the Parliament building Nairobi during the term of the 13th Parliament, with the objective to 1, promote the role and the work of the Senate and enhance public awareness regarding the business of the Senate. 2, highlight the existing and new opportunities for engagement in the legislative process. 3, develop and strengthen partnership at the county level of government. 4, provide an opportunity to members and staff of our county assemblies to learn and share the best practices with senators and parliamentary officers. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 126(1) of the Constitution, the Senate resolves that its plenary and committee sittings be held in the counties for 1 week period within the month of September in every session of the 4th Senate except during an election year, and further that a program of sittings outside Parliament buildings in Nairobi be drawn to ensure that such sittings take place in different counties of the Republic. Mr. Speaker, I'm very excited about this motion that I'm moving this afternoon. You are aware, Mr. Speaker, that in 2018, this House resolved to hold its first ever sitting outside of Nairobi in the county of Uasin Gishu. We had a good interaction with members of the public. If you have watched that clip, Mr. Speaker, where then Senator Fuelgeo Marakwet, together with the now present Senator for Uasin Gishu, are being challenged and told that you're very loud, you know how to speak very well,
Zungumza Mahindi. That was during that particular session, where members of the parliament came, members of public, Mr. Speaker, interacted with their senators and had an opportunity to debate with us and engage us, watch us live as we deliberated on their issues. Now present Senator for Uasin Gishu, Senator Jackson Mandago, appeared before Public Accounts Committee then and gave an account of how he had utilized the funds that had been sent to Uasin Gishu County in the full glare and in the presence of members of the public from Uasin Gishu County. This is something that rarely happens, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, drawing from that particular experience, Mr. Speaker, we moved on the following year to Kitui County, Mr. Speaker, where we had a very, very interactive session with members of the Lower Eastern, people from Makueni, Machakos. They all came, Mr. Speaker, to listen and follow the proceedings of the Senate. In fact, they wanted their governors to appear, just as they had watched in Uasin Gishu. Unfortunately, then Governor Mutua, Governor Kivuda Kibwana, and Charity Ngilu, they did certain things that we had not prepared for and never had the opportunity to appear before. The sittings of the County Public Account Committee turned out to be a shouting match between their supporters, and therefore, for that reason, the chair of the committee, I think must have been Senator Moses Kajwang, suspended the sittings. But nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, we had a good time. 1 full week that we stayed in Kitui, from Sunday evening all the way to Friday, doing our businesses, interacting with the people of Kitui. We visited government establishment. You have heard me, Mr. Speaker, on this House quote on many occasions that it was on the visit of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee to Kitui Maximum Prison, Mr. Speaker. And when they met with the inmates there, realized that most of them were actually being held because they could not raise fines for petty offenses, 200 shillings, 5,000, 3,000. The committee sat there inside a government prison, passed a resolution, Mr. Speaker, and that afternoon, as the Senate Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs left Kitui Maximum Prison, they left with about 200 prisoners. Members of the public that had been kept indoors or locked up because of very little offenses that they couldn't pay for the fines thereof, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I look forward, unfortunately, due to COVID, Mr. Speaker, we were not able to do this session in 2020, 2021. Because of the election in 2022, we were not able to have sittings of the Senate outside of Nairobi. I look forward, Mr. Speaker. Up to now, we have not made a decision, and we said we leave it to the convincing of the House. That's why I want as many senators as possible speak to this House and tell us, send an invite. Of course, Mr. Speaker, I would have wished that Kericho be next online, but it will appear very selfish of me as majority leader. I know there are other opportunities that people can get to travel to that particular county, Mr. Speaker. When we spoke about this matter at the Senate Business Committee, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I urged members of SPC, and I want to plead with this House, that there are certain corners of this House that unless we take Senate machinani, members of this Senate will never step in those corners, Mr. Speaker. The far-flung corners where Senator Lomonen comes from, or even Senator Kamau in Lamu, Marsabit, Isiolo, very far-flung parts of this country, Mr. Speaker, that for one reason or the other, you find that colleague senators have never been to. It's not possible, Mr. Speaker, that you want to be a senator in the Senate of the Republic of Kenya and just know about Nairobi and your home county, Mr. Speaker. This is one such opportunity that affords us the chance to interact with members of certain counties that for some reason, perhaps you've only read about them in GHC and have never set foot in places like Wajir and different parts of the country, Mr. Speaker. This is the only chance. And we told even the leadership and the management of the Senate that don't give us long stories about hotels that are not present in Turkana. No problem. We will go there and sleep in tents if that is what it takes for the Turkana people to get to see their beloved senators. Or in Lamu, we will cross by those boats that Senator Kamau uses every other weekend and spend there, Mr. Speaker. Of course, there are many reasons why we will consider. I know your own county of Garissa, county well blessed with natural resources, Mr. Speaker, that maybe some of our colleagues here have never had opportunity to travel to. This is the only chance and opportunity that we afford them. Therefore, I want to urge colleague senators that we pass this motion, agree. Of course, we shall then find ways and means. We shall send a team made up of senators and members of staff to go on a scouting expedition, perhaps nominate 3 up to 5 counties, come back and give us feedback. then as a leadership and together with you as colleague senators, we'll take a decision of a program for the next 3 or 4 years of which counties we shall visit, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to urge colleague senators to pass this motion and set the ball rolling so that we prepare to be outside of Nairobi in September and interact with the various cultures and the beauty of this country, Mr. Speaker. With those many remarks, I want to move and beg the majority whip to second. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Just a second, Majority Whip. We have a delegation, visiting delegation from various county assemblies. Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, a visiting delegation from various county assemblies. The delegation comprises 15 members of staff from the county assemblies of Busia, Siaya, Kisii, Kericho, and Kakamega. The delegation is undertaking a capacity building program at the Center of Parliamentary Studies. Honorable Senators, on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, I extend a warm welcome and wish you a fruitful visit. Thank you. Seconder, you can second.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to second this motion as moved. But before I do so, Mr. Speaker, I want to register my frustration that a delegation from the county assemblies normally sits not in the public gallery, but in the Speaker's gallery. And there's a difference, Mr. Speaker. I don't know, Mr. Speaker, whether this is a conspiracy of the fact that one of my counties is there. I protest. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a straightforward motion, and I don't wish to belabor. I support, and I think the challenge will be, where do we go as a priority and which one comes later? My proposal, Mr. Speaker, will be that we move from region to region. And when you go to a region, go to the counties in that region that are least visited. I have on mind, Mr. Speaker, for example, if we go to the region of coast, then the place to go would not be Mombasa. You would be talking about Lamu, because Lamu is least visited. Kilifi, Kwale, and Mombasa, thanks to their beaches, they enjoy a lot of visitation. If you go to Nyanza, for example, we would not be wishing to go to Kisumu. We would like to find ourselves in Homa Bay, so that for the first time, some of the senators can come face to face with the challenges the people of Homa Bay face to travel from Vita, the Mfungamano Island, to the main. Mr. Speaker, if we go to Western, I would be proposing that they don't come to Kakamega, but they end up in a place like Busia, and they see the challenges the people of Busia are faced with when it comes to cross-border issues, and so on and so forth. Mr. Speaker, we want to send the clear message that Senate is a house that represents counties and serves to protect the interests of those counties, their people, and their governments. And there's no greater way of doing this than to carry the entire institution so that it is seen to be in a specific county. With those many remarks, I second, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. And Senator Kalwale, there is no conspiracy. Maybe I should just clarify that for members to sit on the Speaker's panel, there is an issue of dress code. The dress code is followed, so the members were not properly dressed. Not a conspiracy. Thank you, Senator. Honorable Senators, I propose the question that aware that the Senate of Kenya is established by Article 93 of the Constitution, and its main role, as set out at Article 96, is to represent
serve, and protect the interests of the counties and their governments. Further aware of the critical role that the Senate plays in the interlinkage between the national and county levels of government, cognizant of the need to enhance the interaction between the Senate and county governments as a means of bringing the Senate closer to the counties and the general public. Acknowledging the success made during the sittings of the Senate outside Nairobi, held in Uasin Gishu and Kitui counties in September 2018 and in September 2019, respectively. Appreciating the recommendation of the Senate Business Committee that a sitting of the Senate be held away from the traditional premises in Parliament buildings, Nairobi, during the term of the 13th Parliament with the objective to, 1, promote the role and work of the Senate and enhance public awareness regarding the business of the Senate. 2, highlight existing and new opportunities for engagement in the legislative process. 3, develop and strengthen partnership at the county level of government. And 4, provide an opportunity to members and staff of county assemblies to learn and share best practices with senators and parliamentary officers. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 126(1) of the Constitution, the Senate resolves that its plenary and committee sittings be held in the counties for a one-week period within the month of September in every session of the 4th Senate, except during an election year, and further, that a program of sittings outside parliamentary buildings in Nairobi be drawn to ensure that such sittings take place in different counties of the Republic. I call upon senators to make contribution. Senator Omatinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to support. Mr. Speaker, sir, Kenya is one of the countries that's blessed and bestowed with a lot of diversity. We have, however, failed to appreciate what we've been blessed with, our cultural diversity, our differences in terms of endowment has been a challenge as opposed to being a blessing. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, the approach of taking Senate machinani, it will not only give the senators and the member of public a view of the other counties and a perspective of a different diversity, but it will also show the public what the Senate does. The interaction of the House of Senate with the people at the machinani level will also demystify some of the things that people think senators should be doing. The fact that we'll be giving an opportunity to the public to interact with senators from different regions will also serve a very important role of bringing this great nation together. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would be one of those senators who would be prepared to offer every senator to hold the first Senate machinani in Nyeri County, because I think we are more than prepared to accommodate and to showcase what the Senate is all about. I support, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Ali Roba.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this proposal to have Senate machinani at our counties in order to make sure that as we represent, the interest of counties, it's very critical that we are seen as close to the people as possible, and also that is going to give an opportunity for our members of county assemblies to be able to learn from the way we carry out our functions, besides an opportunity to interact with our public also at the grassroots level. That is going to really position us very differently as senators, people who are very close to the public interest, and for that matter, I want to rise to support. And as Senator Omatinga said, I want to offer also that maybe the second county after Nyeri, because I don't want to outdo Senator Omatinga, the second county after Nyeri that I want to invite our senators to come to will be Mandera County, so that we get the opportunity to be able to see the mountain as well as also the asals of this country. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, senators. I call upon the mover to move. Sorry, I call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I had been requested by the leader of the majority to respond on his behalf. Mr. Speaker, I wish to respond, and in so doing, thank all honorable members for quickly making sure that we transact this particular business. It is good that we dispense with it so that we allow the Secretariat of the Senate to do the needful to actualize the intention of this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, I respond.
Honorable Senators, I put the question that aware that the Senate of Kenya is established by Article 93 of the Constitution and its main role as set out at Article 96 is to represent, serve and protect the interests of the counties and their governments. Further aware of the critical role that the Senate plays in the interlinkage between the national and county levels of government, cognizant of the need to enhance the interaction between the Senate and county governments as a means of bringing the Senate closer to the counties and the general public. Acknowledging the success made during the sitting of the Senate outside Nairobi, held in Uasin Gishu and Kitui counties in September 2018 and in September 2019, respectively. Appreciating the recommendation of the Senate Business Committee that a sitting of the Senate be held away from the traditional premises in Parliament's building, Nairobi, during the term of the 13th Parliament, with the objective to, 1, promote the role and work of the Senate and enhance public awareness regarding the business of the Senate. Senator, you can take your seat. With the objective to, 1, promote the role and work of the Senate and enhance public awareness regarding the business of the Senate. 2, highlight existing and new opportunities for engagement in the legislative process. 3, develop and strengthen partnership at the county level of the government. And 4, provide an opportunity to members and staff of county assemblies to learn and share best practices with senators and the parliamentary officers. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 126(1) of the Constitution, the Senate resolves that its plenary and committee sittings be held in the counties for a one-week period within the month of September in every session of the 4th Senate, except during an election year, and further, that a program of sittings outside Parliament buildings in Nairobi be drawn to ensure that such sittings take place in different counties of the Republic. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 12, the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2022, second reading.
Senators, on the order, the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2022, we're going to resume debate if any senator is willing, is interested to contribute. At this point, I'm going to ask the mover to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this motion was moved by the Senator of Tana River, Senator Danson Mungatana. And as the House knows, Senator Mungatana is a member of the Pan-African Parliament. With me, Mr. Speaker, I have an authorization dated 2nd of March this year, penned by Senator Mungatana, authorizing me to respond on his behalf. I tabled the letter, which is copied to the Office of the Speaker, and respond as follows. Mr. Speaker, that I thank all members of the Senate for the contributions that you made on this very important bill of the need for us to help communities and counties that are blessed with resources so that they are cushioned from exploitation by creating the necessary legislative tools that will make sure that those resources go beyond being protected and that they are shared in an agreed manner. Mr. Speaker, I have a dream that after this law goes through, it will give way to an opportunity for us to create 2 bits of sovereign funds. That we create a sovereign national fund and a sovereign county fund. If, for example, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are talking about the Turkana oil, or we are talking about the gold mining of Kakamega, then into the sovereign fund of the county of Turkana, and on the other hand, the county of Kakamega, shall be deposited the percentage calculated under this law into that fund, and then the leadership with the consultation with the stakeholders in the county can then agree on what areas, which projects, which programs the sovereign fund can be applied to. It could be, Mr. Speaker, sir, for example, applied to educating the children of the poor. It can be in some counties like in Turkana, the fund can be reserved for feeding people, and so on and so forth, Mr. Speaker. I thank you and I move. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I respond. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for this opportunity to address you. Mr. Speaker, as you can see, this motion touches on matters concerning counties. And Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order number 66.3/1, I hereby request that you defer the putting of this question to a later date. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Your request is granted, and this matter is deferred to Tuesday, 14th of March, 2023 at 2:30 p.m. Next order.
Order number 13, the County Vocational Education and Training Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2022, second reading.
That matter is deferred, so next order.
Order number 14, motion, provision of free sanitary towels to end period poverty.
That order is also deferred. Next order.
Order number 15, motion, institution of measures to curb incessant high electricity costs in Kenya.
That order is also deferred. Next order.
Order number 16, motion, enhancing highway safety and convenience.
That order is also deferred. Next order.
Order number 17, motion, compensation to the Kenyan victims of the 1998 bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi.
The Senator is also not here. That order is also deferred. Next order.
Order number 18, motion, report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to the 145th Assembly and related meetings of the Interparliamentary Union held from 11 to 15 October 2022 in Kigali, Rwanda.
Senator Boni Khalwale, move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to move the following motion. Motion number 18 on the order paper, being the report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to the 145th Assembly and related meetings of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, held from 11th to 15th of October 2022 in Kigali, Rwanda. Mr. Speaker, sir, that the Senate notes the report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to the 145th Assembly and related meetings of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, held from 11th to 15th of October 2022 in Kigali, Rwanda, which I laid on the table of this Senate on Thursday, the 23rd February 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am privileged to be a member of the IPU. And I'm further privileged, Mr. Speaker, to have been part of this strong delegation that comprised of members of Parliament from the National Assembly and members of Parliament from this Senate. Mr. Speaker, indeed, we held this function, made far-reaching deliberations, and the details of which are in the report. Mr. Speaker, what stood out in this particular IPU meeting were 2 points. The positions of the parliaments of the world on negative climate change. The second one was the position of the parliaments of the world. And in that meeting, Mr. Speaker, Assembly, we had over 1,000 members of parliament. The second issue which stood out, Mr. Speaker, was the war and conflict in Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, it was a very motive process. I saw for the first time members of parliament from different countries reaching the point of punching each other because of the differing views on these very motive issues. But be that as it may, we went on and made far-reaching recommendations that are in this report, and I want to appeal to the House that you adopt this report so that it can be taken to the next level for purposes of a better world. I cannot end my contribution, Mr. Speaker, without reminding this House that the IEPU sits in a unique place in the history of the world. It is the IPU which was the precursor to the League of Nations, the League of Nations that formed the United Nations. It is the IPU that gave the world the League of Nations that stopped the World War II, and the UN that stopped the UNO that stopped the Second World War. This shows, Mr. Speaker, the role that parliaments of the world have played, and I hope, because many of us sit in this Senate, the experimental ideation by the leader of the opposition called Azimio to try and take this country into a state of instability, this Senate and this National Assembly will learn from the IPU on how they handled the First World War and the Second World War and stopped conflict in the world, that they will use that experience and history to ensure that that experiment by the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, is rejected in total. Mr. Speaker, sir, I move and request the distinguished senator from Kiambu, the Honorable Dangwa, to second my motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion on the report that has been tabled by my good friend, the Senator of Kakamega. And Mr. Speaker, as I second, it's good to bring to the attention of the House, I coming from Kiambu and the mover of the motion coming from Kakamega, we share a lot of in common, because during the evolution or when the counties were demarcated, they were given 12 counties, just like Kiambu that has, 12 sub-counties, just like Kiambu has 12 sub-counties. Mr. Speaker, as I rise to second, IPU, which is Interparliamentary Union, formerly Interparliamentary Conference, is a global organization, Mr. Speaker, that facilitates diplomacy between parliaments and parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker, with the main aim of promoting peace among nations, Mr. Speaker, and of course, development between the member countries. Mr. Speaker, as it has been highlighted here, the main aim or the main theme of the 145 Interparliamentary Union gathering was to discuss on issues climate change, because they do believe on greener nations and, of course, the environment, Mr. Speaker, so that they can implement the Paris Agreement that talks about climate change and, of course, environment. Mr. Speaker, I urge the members of this House to go through the report and adopt this report, because from it, we will understand that no country is an island. No parliament is an island. We all need to work together so that we can achieve what is ailing the big or the main global village. Mr. Speaker, I second.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the Senate notes the report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to the 145th Assembly and related meetings of the Interparliamentary Union held from 11th to 15th October 2022 in Kigali, Rwanda, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 23rd February 2023. Honorable Senators, I put the question that the Senate notes the report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to the 145th Assembly and related meetings of the Interparliamentary Union held from the 11th to 15th October 2022 in Kigali, Rwanda, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 23rd February 2023. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 19, motion, report of the 61st session of the Organization of African, Caribbean and Pacific States, Parliamentary Assembly and the 42nd session of the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly held in Maputo, Mozambique on 23rd October to 2nd of November 2022. She's not here.
Yeah, the Senate is not around, so that matter is deferred. Next order.
Order number 20, motion, the doping menace threatening Kenya's impeccable global reputation in athletics.
Senator Samson Cherargei.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. That I want to move the motion that doping menace threatening Kenya's impeccable global reputation in athletics. That aware that in 2018 Kenya was placed under Category A by the World Anti-Doping Agency, and since then 47 Kenyan athletes have been banned by either Athletics Integrity Unit, AU, or the Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya, ADAC, and has led to a situation whereby the Kenyan athletes have to undergo intense testing before participating in major events, and has immensely affected the reputation of Kenyan athletes and the standing of the Kenya international sports arena, where it currently ranks at number 5. Concerned that, despite the high number of alleged doping cases, Kenya has only one World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, approved blood testing laboratory, forcing it to send urine tests to Qatar and South Africa for analysis, and that the Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya, ADAC, is taking too long to address the doping menace, which is likely to affect the state of preparedness for the athletes in the upcoming 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, France. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves that the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Arts come up with modalities that can help achieve increased testing, intelligence gathering on athletes and doping awareness programs, number 1, but B, in collaboration with Athletics Kenya, National Olympic Committee of Kenya, NOC, to vet all training camp coaches and trainers and other athletes, initiate investigation at Anti-Doping Agency Kenya, ADAC, to identify and sanction all responsible officers liable for the menace of doping. D, in collaboration with Directorate of Criminal Investigations and Ethics and Anti-Corruption, EACC and DCI, finalize pending investigations and recommend prosecution of individuals involved in giving this banned substance to athletes. And finally, Mr. Speaker, in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, to identify and revoke licenses for medics, pharmacies, and hospitals responsible for prescription of the commonly abused drugs by the athletes. Mr. Speaker, these are very critical and important motion, Mr. Speaker. And as I move, I want to indicate that Kenya is known as the powerhouse. Mr. Speaker, you are aware, we just got 10 gold medals the other day from Australia in several. Kenya is synonymous, Mr. Speaker, whenever even you walk anywhere in the world. And Mr. Speaker, whenever you walk, they normally say that you tell you are Kenya. If they don't understand your language, they tell you, you do like this. It means running, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is a very critical and important bill that will, motion, Mr. Speaker, sorry, that will assist, Mr. Speaker. You know, us in Nandi or North Rift region, we are the source of champions. Wazingishu is the city of champions. Elgeyo Marakwet is the home of champions because of high altitude, Mr. Speaker. And one of the biggest soft underbelly, and continues to threaten serious careers, Mr. Speaker, of even promising renowned athletes, Mr. Speaker, apart from other issues, like marital issues where our athletes are having problems sometimes, or being killed like Agnes Tirop and the rest, Mr. Speaker, is the biggest challenge, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of doping. And that is why it is so dangerous that WADA and the ADAC need to up the game, Mr. Speaker, because we are preparing for 2024 athletics champions. And you know, we don't want our integrity to be dented in the world global. So, Speaker, when you walk across the south and north rift of this republic, and even Kisii, Nyamira, and even Meru, or even Mount Kenya region, Mr. Speaker, you at 4 a.m., you'll be wondering why are people running. They are not night runners, Mr. Speaker. That is the earliest. And I see people like Boni Khalwale in Nairobi having eaten very well. You know, there should be no confusion, Mr. Speaker. You know, there are people who eat and then run to lose weight. But this one is a talent that is born with. So whenever you go to Nyayo Stadium now or see Boni Khalwale running in the morning, I know Boni is a good person. Although his region, by the way, maybe in future we should also include night running as part of the championship, Mr. Speaker, because those one happen only at midnight, but this one of at least happened from 4 a.m. upwards, Mr. Speaker. So whenever you drive, either through Nandi, through anywhere in Nyamira, Kisii, Mount Kenya region, there are many young people who are as young as 15, 12 years running every morning, Mr. Speaker, to at least win a goal. And that is the competition we want. That is the strength we want, Mr. Speaker. And there is a lot of sacrifice that normally goes there, Mr. Speaker. It is not easy. Those people must train. They must go to massage, Mr. Speaker. But now, because of corruption, because of lethargy, because of anarchy, because of people wanting things through shortcut, Mr. Speaker, there are people who are threatening the careers of our promising athletes. And these are unlicensed coaches, the agents, Mr. Speaker, and they come and tell young people. In fact, I have talked to many athletes who have been in this scandal. They sometimes tell them, take these painkillers. When the officials come and take blood sample, they are told them you are using doping medicine. Another challenge, Mr. Speaker, and that is why we come from the community where we believe in herbs and culture, herbs. But those herbs, our Jacoya, that one, not that one, the real herbs, medicinal value. I know that is a contention, and the good doctor of medicine, Dr. Senator Kalwale, will tell us, these herbs, the local herbs, Mr. Speaker, sometimes you are given maybe for health reasons, medicinal value. But when WADA and other come and take blood sample, they say you are doping, because there is no clear timeline, Mr. Speaker, on how you can use these herbs, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, there should be more research, even as we push, because some of the athletes, Mr. Speaker, that are faced banning, or they are being put on the red list by the World Anti-Doping Agency, Athletics Integrity Unit, or ADAC, Mr. Speaker, and Anti-Doping Agency, are because sometimes they are using these herbs for medicinal value, either for some other things, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, there are people, Mr. Speaker, in a nutshot, there are many people who are selling in pharmacy, and also there is another cartel that are colluding with these agents like pharmacy, doctors, nurses, who go ahead and give injections to these athletes unknowingly. Because some of these athletes, sometimes some of them are coming back from maternity leave. They are being misled that if you use certain drugs or you are injected with it, you are able to go back to the track, Mr. Speaker. And I think going into the future, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cherargei, due to time, you will have a balance of 11 minutes. On the next sitting to continue to move your motion. Honorable Senators, it is now 6:30 p.m., time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until Tuesday, 14th March 2023 at 2:30 p.m.
I'm going to move this.